My name is Bruno Bianchi Sarcone. I run Spainguru.es, and this is the Moving to Spain webinar from Vision to Reality. The objectives of this webinar are hopefully you will gain a clear step-by-step roadmap to relocate to Spain, and you'll get at least basic guidance on legal, financial, and lifestyle planning before you move, and some insights so that you can choose the best location for your needs, some key preparation tips and practical tools so you gain confidence to make your move a success. So a small disclaimer here. The content of this webinar is for information purposes only and it's not legal or financial advice. A little bit about Spainguru. Our objective is facilitating the relocation process for English-speaking foreigners to Spain since 2014, and we have wonderful reviews on Trustpilot and Google. So you're in good hands. You can use Spainguru.es for absolutely free. You can find a free newsletter that I send every single Monday where I feature the top discussions on Spainguru's groups, on social media, and the most watched video of the week, and also investigation blog posts. You can also watch for free Spainguru's YouTube channel with 1,000 videos and where I upload all the recordings of my webinars. You can also find blog posts, more than 1,850 blog posts with visa guides, Spanish destinations, 13 Spanish cities and areas where 90% of foreigners move to Spain. As I mentioned, a huge community composed by different Facebook groups and subreddits with a total of 150,000 aggregated members. So all that you can find on Spainguru.es. Of course, if you want legal help or expert help in different fields like taxes, financial planning, and so much more, you can go on Spainguru.es. I have personally vetted my partners. I have many of them, used them personally, and most of them I have been recommending them for several years. So you're in very good hands. They stood the test of time. And if you're applying for a visa, you can also find services that for sure you will need, like visa compliant health insurances, medical certificates, sworn translation, apostille services, and many other auxiliary services when you're moving to Spain, such as bank accounts, money transfer, property rentals, even mortgages if you're planning to purchase property in Spain. Also, I think it's very relevant that you know that on Spainguru.es, I have recently launched the Move to Spain checklist. Let me share my screen here. And if you go to Spainguru.es, there's the Move to Spain checklist here. And if you push this button, you're going to see the different 5 milestones that starts 1 year before moving to Spain. And just to give you an example, you will go step by step into all the different things like your vision, understand your immigration options with explanatory videos, articles, partners, and so much more. Okay, building your budget, understanding taxes, joining the community, choosing your destination, etc., etc. So much information, absolutely free information that you can definitely access today. Now, let's go to the content of this webinar. Let's talk about the different stages of moving to Spain. And there are, I think, 9 different important stages when you move to Spain. First, the vision, then the schedule or roadmap, then the destinations, okay, or the locations where you move to Spain. Then we need to talk about budget, immigration options, housing when you move to Spain, how you arrive to Spain, the different steps, and how you build your community and support network once you are in Spain, and the emotional journey of all this process. We're going to talk about all that in this webinar. Let's start by the vision, the first step. And I'm here quoting somebody who posted on Facebook that they were searching for a house in Malaga City, but suddenly the spouse decided to consider other options, a smaller town next to Malaga, which is cheaper, but has better beaches, but you need a car, instead of being in the city. Malaga has a wonderful public transportation system, access to hospitals, shopping areas, and so many more amenities. But of course, maybe not so good beaches, maybe a bit more expensive. So how come they have this now suddenly change their opinions? Okay, it can happen. It is natural that you evolve your vision on what you expect when you move to Spain. But in order so that there are no, let's say, unexpected surprises, I think it's important to talk about it, okay? Starting with yourself and with your partners that you're gonna move to Spain with, okay? So it's important to have a clear vision so you lay a foundation for a successful relocation, okay? Because it will guide every single decision that you make. And how do you build that vision? Okay, you will have to define your life in Spain. You have to imagine it, picture it, right? So start by imagining your ideal day-to-day life. How is going to be your work-life balance? How is going to be your social life? How do you imagine the type of leisure activities? What are you going to be doing? Are you going to be doing this in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening? How do you see the weekdays versus the weekends, right? So you expand from one specific day in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Imagine weekdays versus weekends. And now imagine different months, okay? Consider times of the year. Consider is holiday season, at least in Spain, August, July, August, versus Christmas. Do you plan to visit, your home countries? Do you plan to assist to festivals? And so much more, right? So you start small and you start to zoom out in the calendar. And how do you imagine your life in Spain? Now, it's also important that you put a preferred setting, okay? Is it a city? Is it a coastal town? Is it a rural inland area in Spain, right? And now you have to also think practically, right? In practical terms. Proximity to healthcare is important for you. Are you moving with family? Do you want international schools, or is it okay that your kids enroll in public system in Spain? Access to shopping, transportation, local transportation versus car transportation, dependency on cars. Are you gonna travel around Spain or Europe? Do you need to have an airport next to you? Then cultural priorities like festivals, food, arts. Is that important for you? Has to be like a cultural scene, important cultural scene where you live, or is it okay if it's a relaxed town, okay, with not so much going on, but it's fine with you, right? And think also, now that you thought about your vision for your day-to-day, month-on-month, and year-on-year, your long-term goals, okay? Potentially, do you plan to stay in Spain? Yes, for the longer term. Or is it something just a sabbatical year in Spain and then you're gonna move back to your home country or whatever you were living before, right? So think about those things and write them down, right? And start by identifying your top 3 must-haves, the non-negotiables, the deal breakers, right? Like, I'm not gonna move to Spain if I don't get these 3 things in my life. Yes, it's important that you think about that, even a little bit selfishly, right? It's important because in the end, you need to be okay with your move to Spain. Why are you moving to Spain? Because your doubts will come and you need to revisit the reasons why you moved to Spain. What were you searching for when you moved to Spain, right? There's a workshop I propose you. First, define your 3 non-negotiables. 2, visualize your perfect day, perfect week, perfect month, even perfect year. Step 3, you can become creative and do a collage, okay? Or write sentences. Yes, do a collage with, chopping images from a magazine with images. Choose words, symbols that represent your dream life. Yes. Step 4, very important. Don't keep it to yourself. If you're moving alone, even if you're moving alone, maybe ask your friends, ask your family. Join communities, Facebook groups with people who are thinking to move or already did. Yes, share your plans, share your idea, let's say, and get feedback, right? And if you're moving with your partner, it's important that you talk about these ideas that you both have, so you get into a common ground, right? And if you're moving with your family, potentially think about including all your family into this workshop, right? And then number 5, let's go from idea to plan, right? Set up an action plan for the next 30 days. What could you do in order to move to Spain? Yes. Generally, now we're gonna go deeper. Yes, and I have a video about how to work on your Spanish vision, yes, or your vision of your plan to Spain. Yes, I think it's very, very important that you think about this and you talk about it and you write about it, because then otherwise you would have a much smoother move, because you will come into crossroads, different decisions, and you have to choose between the different decisions. But if you align it with your vision, everything will go smoother. There are many tools you can use for free online. Obviously, Google, weatherspark.com for comparing climates. You can compare even up to 7 cities anywhere in the world, including Spain, with your local cities as well, so you understand how the climate is where you're planning to move. So you start narrowing down the list of places where you would feel good moving to. Google Maps, especially satellite view, will be very helpful to understand the distances and the layout of the cities. It is much different normally than where you're coming from, especially if you're coming from the States. From the United States, Spanish cities, they have a different layout, different distances, right? Imagine that Spain more or less has the size of Texas. So it's important that you understand this. Street View is also a wonderful tool, because you can see what's going on. Yes, and you start before doing a scouting trip to Spain, you can already get a good idea of what's going on. Then you have idealista.com, a wonderful and huge real estate platform, top in Spain, with a lot of data, where you can already start to see prices, even the different areas, the different neighborhoods, yes, and the different type of properties. Numbeo.com, a platform that is a community-based platform that shares the costs of living in the different cities. Also, different indexes like criminality, quality of life as well. So it's very, very interesting, Numbeo, and it's quite granular. And you can also compare the different cities among Spain or with other cities outside of Spain, and you can go pretty granular. Okay, and of course, as I mentioned before, joining communities, Facebook groups. You have the Spainguru's community with thousands of members that are in different stages about moving to Spain, or they have been living in Spain for several years, who are going to share with you their feedback, right, and answer your questions. You can also, of course, watch YouTube for free, and there's Spainguru's YouTube channel there, and Spainguru.es. And of course, as I said, you can seek professional help, okay? And at the very least, I recommend you engaging with an immigration lawyer and with a tax advisor, okay? These two things, at the very least, I highly recommend. After talking about your vision, engaging, at least consulting with 45 minutes with one of each, okay? It's a true investment, because then you can revisit your vision and transform it into something that is more applicable into reality. It stops being just a dream and starts becoming a plan. Now let's talk about the schedule, okay, or roadmap, okay? Now we're going more into practical terms. We're going to talk about timings, yes? Why it's important to lay out a schedule? Because it will keep you organized, because there's so many things that come into play when you're moving to Spain, and it's important that you meet the deadlines, okay? And you anticipate blocks on the way. So it's important that you set a calendar for moving to Spain. How do you do it? First, you write on a paper your intended move to Spain date, and you work backwards from there. So you say, I want to move in July 2026, right? So it's almost 1 year from now. Yes. What does it have to happen? What do I have to do in order to move to Spain on July 2026, right? So you will start to identify different milestones or sub-projects, okay? Groups of things that you need to do, like visa application, housing, job transition, school transition, many different things that I will also show you, the most common ones that you need to have in mind, and different time frames, okay, for each one of them, because these are also projects that need to be ready by the time you move to Spain. right? Um, and you will have to also be conservative, allow for delays, and maybe problems. Okay, if you maybe you want to sell your home before moving to Spain, that may take 1 month or it could take 6 months, right? So you have to be flexible and careful to allow for those details and to be able to adapt, because of course we don't control everything in this universe. So it's important that you have that in mind, right? And again, I propose you here a workshop for laying your schedule to move to Spain. First, choose your ideal date. Second, identify milestones. Third, uh, what can you do for the different time frames, starting 1 year before, for example. For this, is great if you use Spainguru's Move to Spain checklist. Okay. Step 4, identifying challenges. But maybe you're like, okay, but what kind of challenges are there going to have? Will I have? I don't know. I never moved to another country. I never moved to Spain. How can I know this? Well, if you join the communities, you can read other people's experiences and ask questions directly. You can also do it anonymously. Maybe you don't want other family members knowing that you are going to move to Spain or that you are considering this possibility. So you have all the tools, really. This is, for example, one couple who moved from London to Alicante and is sharing the different milestones in their moving. Okay, or this is a couple that moved from New York City to Andalusia in southern Spain. Young couple there that are actually interviewed on Spainguru's YouTube channel. So there's much information, and you can see that they faced blocks and challenges, but they overcame them and moved to Spain. Right? How did they do it? And this will help you to identify patterns. Maybe you could be in their place, in their shoes, and maybe you could face the same challenges, right? Other ways to see the schedule is to establish the different time frames month by month, okay, and the different milestones. So on the left column, you have the 9 stages in this presentation: vision, destination, immigration, tax, budget, schedule, visa, house sale, moving process, housing arrival, and different time frames. So you can see the time frames are different. Some things take a few hours, some things take literally months. Okay, some things you need to go back. For example, your vision. Okay, after you are investigating and adding layers of knowledge, you will revisit your vision and work it out again. Yes, and you will adapt it. And this is slide that I borrowed from my non-lucrative visa webinar that normally is 1.5 hours. But yeah, you can see here a Gantt chart style, because every single milestone in your Moving to Spain project has to be treated as a project by itself. For example, the visa application process, in this case, is non-lucrative visa. It could be digital nomad visa, is completely different, or student visa, or highly qualified worker, or ordinary work permit, or etc. It has different timings and different requirements and different documentation and so much more. So in this case, you can see that for non-lucrative visa, you will start by getting your criminal records, you will get apostilles from translations, financial documents, medical certificates, and all those have certain validity periods. They need to be valid at the time of application. You will have to get a consulate appointment in this case. You will submit your application at the consulate appointment and then wait for the processing of his visa and then move to Spain, right? So as you can see, it can be very specific, and this is actually a very big summary of this visa type, right? I don't want to scare you, but exactly this is what I want to warn you why you have to be meticulous and organized. And if you are not a person of these characteristics, maybe seek for help, okay, for people who are doing this professionally and can help you out, okay? Or maybe you're in the midway, okay? You're an organized person and everything, but you just don't want to learn everything, okay? So maybe do it yourself and maybe just consult for an hour with an expert who can check your filing, your situation, and see if it makes sense what you are gonna be doing, right? And again, I propose you a few free tools. You can find them online for project management. You have Trello, Okay, this is a cards style or Kanban style project management tool. As you can see there on the right, you can have several columns, like a to-do column and in progress column and review column and done column. So you're moving cards, smaller tasks. It could be, for example, house sale, right? So this card, you move it to the right until it is done. Yes, so everything is moving along the pipeline, let's say. And you can add deadlines, you can add responsible people if you're several of you, or if you're moving with your couple, or you can share it, you can lay it the way you want. Okay, it is very, very flexible, and it is free, and you have it in your phone. You can share it with your couple as well. So it's very, very good. Or Google Sheets, it's free. It is very easy. You just have everything in one place, but unfortunately it doesn't have the project management capabilities like deadlines and responsible people, etc. It's just text, but it is very easy layout that we all know. Join the Facebook groups, and I very much recommend using Google Calendar, because you can put your deadlines in the calendar even the day before or the week before, so you prepare yourself for things that are going to happen, and you have enough time in advance to react. Then there is the third stage, destination. Where are you going to move to Spain? What are the key factors to consider when choosing a place or narrowing a list of places where you want to move? First, climate and geography. Okay, it's very important. You can use WeatherSpark. Community and culture. Okay, deciding it's a big city, smaller city, quiet village, on the coast, inland, so many different things to consider. Essential amenities, the practical things like access to healthcare, schools, transportation, shopping, leisure options, airports, and for example, if you play specific sports, well, access to that specific sport possibility, etc., right? Cost of living. Some people argue it's the most important. Okay, it's very, very important to start putting prices, okay, or price tags to your plans, okay, because maybe sometimes you will need to balance your 3 non-negotiables with, of course, the prices that they come with. Okay, in the same city there are strong variations. Okay, city like Barcelona, for example, there are very rich neighborhoods, and of course there are much more affordable neighborhoods, okay, like in any city, right? So all those things come into play, right? We mentioned climate. You can see there very quick climate class on Spain. You can see northwest oceanic climate. It is rainier, less sunshine in the year, milder, colder temperatures. It is the ocean, so the type of beaches are different than in Mediterranean. Okay, so it is very, very different from the Mediterranean coast, yes, which is more arid in many places. In the southeast, okay, Almeria in the yellow area, it is arid. Okay, in southern Spain and East Spain, including the Balearic Islands, is Mediterranean climate, so much milder. It is a sea, it is not our ocean. Okay, and then you have inland Spain, okay, with its strong climate variations, and Madrid inside inland Spain. So consider that, and consider spending some time on weatherspark.com and comparing cities, because you can see a lot of official data on the weather, which is very, very, very interesting, because there's so much noise talking about climate and everything. I'm not saying there's no climate change or anything like that. I'm just saying that it is very, very good to have a platform where that for free you can see the official historical data for climates in the different cities, so you make a right idea on the averages, okay, what you would be finding. For example, I didn't know, I live in Malaga, southern Spain, I didn't know Valencia could be so muggy in the summer times. I didn't know that, right? So it's something to consider, for example. Okay, as I mentioned, what can help you to do this research? Join also forums. We didn't mention that before, sorry. Expats, for example, expats in Barcelona, expats in Valencia, they can answer you the questions that they already had, and they got answers for their questions, right? And this is very interesting, using real estate portals as well. and you start comparing prices and services accessibility, because the idea would be to narrow down to maybe 3 places in Spain, okay, where you would be considering to move. To help you with this, I have recently released a section called Spain Destinations, and here, if you go here, Spainguru.es, 13 destinations and the key factors to consider with all the different links that I just mentioned, okay, and even learning Spanish if you want a link to learn Spanish online. And here, for example, Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Alicante, so many places, 13 places, and videos, okay, where I talk about the different destinations. And here, for example, if we go to, let's go to Valencia, one of the most common ones, okay, or the popular ones right now, flat city, yes. You have everything, the pros and cons, the comparisons, the cost of living, linking to Numbeo, specific page about Valencia. So yes, when I did this, I did it having in mind the questions that normally one would have when considering a place where to move. Now let's go back to the presentation. Yes, and here are the different 13 city guys, okay, and the video. Now let's talk about budget, right? Money matters. So, of course, you want to avoid unwanted surprises. You want to know how much money you're going to be spending, okay, and in order to be comfortable and also to comply with the visa requirements that usually come with funding thresholds or minimum thresholds in order to be able to obtain those visas and in order to renew, right? So when you build your budget, you will have to have into account one-time costs like visa fees, deposits, moving or shipping costs, initial setup expenses, just one-off costs, but then also moving monthly expenses. And here, basically, one thing will have a very strong impact: your housing in Spain. Are you going to rent? Are you going to buy? Are you going to buy and fully pay it? Or are you going to buy and have to pay a mortgage? Yes. Another consideration is healthcare, right? And sometimes, most of the times, healthcare is also a condition to obtain the visas in Spain. Like you have to hire a private health insurance. So you have to have that in mind. The monthly costs or yearly costs for private healthcare in Spain that is compliant with your visa. Okay, the cost of utilities, and then cost of groceries, schooling for your kids, etc., right? You have to understand the cost of living variations, and for that, investigating in advance is crucial, okay? And understand that, of course, cities are more expensive than rural areas in general, and you can use, as I said, Numbeo and Idealista to compare the prices, right? So that you understand that you are putting the right amounts in the right boxes. Okay, and something that many people forget is taxes. Okay, you also have to consider that Spanish taxation is usually higher than the English-speaking countries. Okay, and you have to budget for it. Okay, so it's important that you have that in mind, and always be conservative and keep a buffer. Okay, in case of things didn't come out the way you wanted, you're not in a bad situation and you can easily respond. Okay. So create these budgets, okay, by considering the one-off expenses and the monthly expenses. Another thing to anticipate is currency exchange, okay, or fluctuations. A lot of people now are worried about the dollar versus the euro. The US dollar holders lost some purchase power in the last months or in the last couple of years. It didn't used to be like that, but before the dollar was much weaker than the euro, as always. But it's important that you understand that there are currency fluctuations, so that you consider this risk, okay, and be conservative, right? And you manage those risks. And as I said, you have to also consider the immigration factor, because when you renew your visas, for example, the non-lucrative visa, when you move to Spain, you have a certain financial threshold, but when you renew, it can change, okay? It can change because when you apply initially for the non-lucrative visa, they will give you only 1 year residency, and you have to prove that you can sustain yourself during that year. But then the renewals are for 2 years, so you have to prove that you have money for those 2 years. So the calculations change, right? So it is very important that you consider all those things so you build a conservative and realistic budget. Okay, as I mentioned, use numbeo.com just to make sure that you are taking your correct prices. Okay, and consider, consider your lifestyle decisions. Okay, maybe there's too much that you cannot afford a certain lifestyle, or maybe yes, you can afford it. Okay, it is possible, right? Because really in Spain, you can live in Spain for 1,000 euros per month, or for the different lifestyle, you cannot live for less than 5,000 euros. Okay, so if you want to do everything that Barcelona has to offer and live in the best neighborhood in Barcelona, maybe you need to make 5K per month net. Okay, it's not gonna be enough with 1,000, right? And also remember your housing situation. Renting, if you rent short term with an Airbnb, it's gonna be more expensive. If you arrive during the seasonal, high season, it's gonna be expensive. It's gonna take some months to get like longer term renting versus owning a home, if that is your plan, right? So it's important that you understand the different choices and you build maybe different scenarios. Okay, you have a budget tool that I created. It is basically a Google Sheet. It's a shared free Google Sheet that you can find in the Move to Spain checklist or on the top menu, right? And you can download it and use it as a starting point, okay, with the different categories for your budget, right? And let's talk a little bit about taxes. We mentioned that we have to plan for the taxes. Remember that when you become a Spanish tax resident in Spain, you will be liable to pay taxes on your global income and potentially on the net value of your assets, okay, global assets. Now, when you become a Spanish tax resident, when you spend in Spain physically more than 183 days in a calendar year from January 1st to December 31st, that is the tax year, different from immigration year, that is a natural year. And for the Spanish tax residency purposes, doesn't matter your immigration status. So if you spend 2 days as a tourist, those days count for tax authorities, okay? And if you come back to your country, you get your visa, and then you move to Spain with a visa, okay? You have to add those days as a visa holder to the tourist presence as well, okay? So physical presence counts. If you spend 1 minute in Spain, okay, if you're stepping on Spanish soil, that counts as a day in Spain, okay? That's very, very important, okay? And then there are 2 other conditions, okay? So if you spend less than that period of time in a calendar year, but your main income comes from Spain, you could also be considered to be a Spanish tax resident, or if your family lives in Spain, okay? Some key taxes to know is first of all, the income tax, which is taxed at progressive brackets from 19 to 47%. That is due on June 30th, okay? If you move as an autónomo or contractor, you will also have to pay quarterly income tax as well. Now, wealth tax, it's a regional tax. So depending where you move in Spain, you would have to pay it or not, okay? So you have better places in Spain and worse places in Spain for this wealth tax, right? With different thresholds. For instance, Madrid and Andalusia are probably the best regions in Spain in general for taxes, for wealth tax, for transfer tax when you buy property, secondhand property, and many other things like inheritance tax and gift tax. Madrid and Andalusia are the best in general. I can safely say that. But then you have a national wealth tax called solidarity tax at a much higher value of your assets, starting at 3 million euros, okay, minus the deductions, etc. Then you have the Modelo 720, which is your disclosure to Spanish tax authorities of your assets held abroad, outside of Spain, okay? And this is done by different categories. For example, bank accounts, properties, cryptocurrencies, right? If a certain category is over 50,000 euros, you have to disclose everything in that category. For example, 10 bank accounts of 5,000 euros inside each, you will have to disclose all those bank accounts because the total category is 50,000 euros, right? And There's also capital gains tax. For example, if you sell your property abroad and you're a Spanish tax resident, you will have to pay capital gains tax with progressive tax rates, lower than income tax, and many other taxes. Okay, it's worth noting that there is also an ordinary tax regime, okay, for most of the mortals, but there's also a special tax regime called Beckham Law, which usually applies, or you're eligible if you move as an employee to Spain, and you can benefit from a flat rate of 24%, okay, and several other perks, okay. But if you move to Spain as a contractor, okay, because many people under the digital nomad visa move as a contractor thinking that they could be eligible for this special tax regime, and unfortunately 99.99% of the times they're not going to be eligible. So it's important that you engage with a tax advisor, because tax laws here are so complex, tax filings are so complex, in my opinion. And yeah, definitely, worth the investment, okay? And if you want to know more, you can join my free Spanish taxes webinar, okay, that I hold every 2 to 3 weeks. That is also free and you can upload every time to YouTube, okay? And also you can ask your questions in the Q&A session. Now let's move to the fifth stage, immigration, okay? So it's important that you move legally to Spain, and there are many different ways to move. I'm going to mention a few of the most common here. First one, non-lucrative visa for those who have enough financial means so that they don't have to work in Spain, also known as retiring in Spain or taking a sabbatical year in Spain without working. Digital nomad visa if you're working remotely for non-Spanish companies outside of Spain. There is the ordinary work permits, okay, or entrepreneur visa. Okay, so if you have a Spanish job offer from a Spanish company, or you have a business plan to start a business in Spain. Today I released an interview with Ainhoa Manero of Sterna Abogados, where she explains the digital nomad visa versus the ordinary work permits. I think it's a very nice video, interesting video. Golden visa, remember, as of April 2025, it's gone. It's no longer possible to invest in a property in Spain and obtain your a visa, okay, called Golden Visa. There are other alternatives in Europe, and I also have a webinar on Spainguru.es about the alternatives to the Spanish Golden Visa, like Portuguese Golden Visa, that you can join for absolutely free, but that webinar is once per month. Now, key consideration, each visa has specific financial and document requirements. The processing times vary a lot. Some of them you can only apply from consulates and not from Spain. Some of them you can enter Spain as tourist and apply from within Spain, okay, with certain threshold, certain time limits. And be careful, because if you're missing the requirements, you could get a rejection, okay? So don't take it for granted that you will get the visa. You have to go through the process and take it very seriously. So it's important that you move to Spain with the right visa. And also, in my opinion, it's not only choosing the visa for you move to Spain and that's it, but also think long term. Are you planning to get your long-term residency after 5 years? You have certain requirements, okay? Maybe potentially obtaining the Spanish passport, you have certain requirements, and all those requirements overlap at once, okay? So it's important that you understand those requirements and you have a strategy for when moving to Spain, or when you end up without, you can maybe renew a residency. What's the plan B or the plan C, right? So that's very, very important, okay? So remember that when you apply for the visas, you will have to get official documents, okay? And you will have to have new documents with certain validity periods. For example, marriage certificates. If you're moving as a married couple, you have to get new certificates. Birth certificates if you're moving with your kids, okay, potentially obtaining private health insurance. So it's important that you consider all those, and consider that you will have also to apostille those documents, like legalize them and sworn translate them with an official Spanish sworn translator. All those things you can find them on Spainguru.es, and I have webinars about all those things, so I can guide you, and I have tons of videos online and the community. But it's important that you have those in mind, okay? And yeah, I have a couple of webinars there for non-lucrative visa and also digital nomad visa that you can join today, where I go really deep into these two visa types and processes to apply. Now let's talk about housing. When you move to Spain, first of all, I highly recommend you take your time and choose the right destination, okay? Or consider narrowing down to a very short list of places where you can spend certain time doing a scouting trip, okay? In order to do this, stay flexible. You can just rent for the short term using Airbnb, Booking.com, okay, and explore the city, the neighborhoods, understand if it's correct, if it aligns with your vision, okay. And for doing this, the best is just to rent, right? Now, if you're considering to buy, definitely also renting previously will help you get better options, because it will enable you to get more information about how the property market is, how the realtors work, okay, and so much more. So definitely, first, in my opinion, you should go with renting, right? And again, you can use idealista.com to understand the different variations among the different regions, among even inside the different cities. You can see Barcelona, for example, the rental square meter, yes, it's 23.7 euros per square meter for rentals, where, for example, Malaga is 15 euros, okay? But not only understanding this is important, but also the progression, because, for example, Barcelona has grown so much in time and is growing every year like by 10%, okay? Whereas Seville is more flat, right? So you have to understand all this, and for that, investigating using platforms like Idealista is very important. And timing also, when you move to Spain, is also important, because if you move, for example, to a coastal city during summer months, it's going to be harder, it's going to be more expensive. So always try to do it in the low season. Madrid is different, because Madrid in the summer is low season in Madrid, because the Madrileños, they go away from the city and they go to the coast, okay, or somewhere else. And the city of Madrid is kind of empty, feels empty. There's no traffic jams in the summer. It's actually a fantastic time to go to Madrid if you don't worry about the how hot it gets, but it's pretty interesting, right? And also avoid scams. There's many different scams out there, like everywhere else, but if you just do everything very fast, you're not gonna understand what type of scams there are out there. So be careful with those, okay? Hidden fees and misleading listings, okay? There are some strategies that people do when they publish their properties, or even realtors, in order to get buyers or renters for their properties do, okay? So it takes some time to understand all these things, but once you understand it, you will be very more adapted or more prepared for this market, okay? It is not the Wild West, okay? Maybe you feel it this way, but of course it is. It is not a perfect market, so you need to understand those nuances and be careful in order to rent things that are correct and aligned to your vision, okay? So yeah, that's very, very important. You also need to understand the different legalities, okay? For example, if you rent short term versus mid term versus long term, so 1 or 2 days or 3 days versus 2 to 3 months versus more than 1 year, okay, for the longer term. And potentially seek legal advice from a lawyer who understands this type of contracts, okay? And remember that realtors, maybe they work differently here in Spain than elsewhere, especially in the US, because realtors here, for example, there are no MLS systems like multi-listing services. The realtors here is an unregulated profession, okay? Anyone can become a realtor. If I have a property to sell, I am a realtor in a way. I don't have to pass any exam or get any qualification or anything. So anyone can be a realtor. The way they are incentivized is by commissions, okay? And the commissions are ultimately paid by the seller or the landlord, okay? Because they are giving the realtor the portfolio to sell or to rent, okay? And the realtor doesn't have access to all the inventory that there is in a certain market, like in the case of the USA. In the USA, you go to a city, you talk to a realtor that is expert in that city, and the realtor has access to all the properties in that area. Whereas in Spain, they have a specific portfolio that they want to sell you or rent you, okay? So it's important that you understand this incentive chain, right? And quoting members of the Spainguru community, particularly under the non-lucrative visa, what they find is certain difficulties at the beginning to find properties for rent, because the thing that is happening here in Spain is that the law is very much pro the tenants. It's very hard to evict tenants who stop paying, so the landlords are very paranoid about this, and sometimes they will, and there's not too much information about a tenant profile. You don't have eviction reports, you don't have credit checks here in Spain. So basically you need to look at the person's face as a landlord and conclude whether that person will pay you or not. Therefore, unfortunately, the landlords are very worried and paranoid about who they rent to, and many times they don't understand that the person who comes to retire to Spain doesn't have income from Spain or a work contract in Spain. And if they want you to get a default payment insurance, that default payment insurance will require financial history from within Spain. Therefore, sometimes some landlords will not rent to people under an ergative visa, but anyone who came here under an ergative visa found a place to live. Okay, I never heard that someone had to go back to their home country because they didn't find a place to live. But of course, people want to move to the most popular places and not anywhere in the middle of nowhere. So there's competition, right? So it's important that you understand that. Now let's talk about arrival steps. So when you arrive to Spain, you will have to comply with certain things, and also there are certain tips that I highly recommend you following. First, if you're moving with a visa already, it's important that you get a passport stamp from Spanish authorities. But if you move from another Schengen country inside Spain, okay, if you fly, for example, from New York City to Frankfurt in Germany, you get your passport stamps in Frankfurt, and then when you fly from Frankfurt to Madrid, for example, there's no immigration control because you're already inside Schengen. The best you can do is to get a declaración de entrada, okay, which is a one-page document stamped by the police that proves that you enter Spain on a certain date, and you will need that document. It's going to be very helpful to have that document once you want to obtain the residency card later on. This is one tip I can give you. The second one is when you rent in Spain, rent a property that enables you to obtain an empadronamiento, okay? The empadronamiento is a proof of address that is issued by the city hall in the city where you're living, okay? And not, for example, short-term rental contracts for less than 6 months. Most of the city halls won't accept that for empadronamiento. An empadronamiento is a document that may be requested by the police once you try to obtain your residency card. So yes, check that out. Third, it's very useful to open a non-resident bank account, okay? So until you obtain your residency card, you will have to pay, for example, your rent. You will have to pay for utilities. You will have to pay several things. Best way, you go to a brick and mortar bank, Santander, BBVA, Sabadell, La Caixa, all those, they have non-resident bank accounts. You open it and then you deposit some euros and you use it for your daily life in Spain. 4 is get a Spanish SIM card. When you start to do your immigration processes and many other things, they will start sending you official SMS to your phone with links that you need to click. So it's important that you are able to receive those SMS from Spanish authorities. And 5, apply for your TIE card, okay? So officially, depending on your visa process, but if you enter with a visa that enables you or gives you the right to obtain a residency in Spain, you will have officially 30 days from entry. Officially, nobody does it because it's impossible to get appointments that quickly with the police stations. But you will have to get your residency card. It's a plastic card. You go to the police station, you put your fingerprints, show your documentations, your entry date, stamp, potentially empadronamiento, and they will issue the plastic card with your face that says that you are under a certain residency, right? So that's the 5th step when you enter Spain, right? So as I mentioned, most of the banks will offer you non-resident bank accounts, but a lot of foreigners moving to Spain ask, okay, but I have dollars, or I have British pounds, or I have Canadian dollars. How do I transform this into euros? Okay, in my opinion, and I think 90% of the people opinion, you can use Wise, which is a platform that is very, very easy. It has a wonderful user experience. So in your dashboard, you have different accounts in different currencies. So for example, you would transfer from dollars from your Bank of America to the Wise account in dollars in the USA. You transform it to euros within Wise, and once it is in euros in Wise, you send a transfer to your non-resident bank account in Spain. Okay, you can go to Spainguru.es financial services and you can find more videos, explanations, and referral codes for this platforms. Another thing that you need to have in mind is not only having a SIM card for Spain, but also keep the possibility to receive your SMS and 2FAs messages and phone calls from your origin country, especially if you want to continue operating your bank account in your home countries and everything. Find the best way to do so, because it's important that you are still able to use your bank account from within Spain. I'm talking bank accounts outside of Spain, right? Now, the eighth stage, community. Moving from let's say the uglier stuff, money, more into what's your new life in Spain. How do you make Spain your home? And the best, I think, the best thing you can do is to start to build connections, okay, with locals, with expats as well. A lot of people say, like, why do you move to Spain if you're going to be with expats? It's important that you also connect with other expats, with other foreigners, because Spain is very multicultural. It's very cosmopolitan in on the coast at the very least. So there are a lot of people like me. For example, I am from Argentina. I'm not Spanish, but I've been living here for more than 20 years. So I definitely know some things about Malaga, right, or Madrid, where I lived 6 years, or Barcelona, etc. So it's important, in my opinion, that you very quickly start building those connections and that support network as well, okay? And in order to do so, you can go to local clubs, join Facebook groups, join language exchanges, practice Spanish, join your city hall free Spanish classes, dance classes, play sports, watch sports, join workshops, and many different activities. Spain is a fantastic place because there's so many activities anywhere you go, so it is very easy to find those. You can also volunteer, attend festivals, join neighborhood groups. It is a vibrant community wherever you go in Spain, okay? And there are many people who move to Spain looking for the same thing, right? But nobody, let's say, pushes you to do it, right? It has to be yourself. So it's very, very important that you do it. And among these things, probably the most important, or the key base of all this, is learning Spanish. What I like about Spain, and I live in 7 countries in my life, and I speak 5 languages. I love speaking languages. Wherever I go, I learn the language in the place. But I understand that some people don't want to, okay? And I also like to go to communities where they don't mix with the locals, because for example, I go to a place full of English people, wherever. I like it too, because it's very special. They have their own culture and everything, and I like it too. So what I like about Spain is that they are not pushy about you learning Spanish. However, I highly recommend you learning Spanish, because your life will change so much. You will get so much more information. Your contact with the locals' life and everything will be much more sophisticated, with so many more nuances. In my opinion, you will extract the most out of it, okay? And you can use free apps like Duolingo, and many other apps out there. There's also a very, very nice, very great online course for adults on Spainguru.es with a discount. You can get there. I highly recommend. I did the course, I checked it and I saw it, and it's very, very, very good. So you can find it on Spainguru.es. So definitely, it will help you connect with everyone and with your life in Spain. Okay, so this is very important, and I can't underline it more. Okay, and finally, last but not least, the emotional journey, something that many people don't mention. Okay, they will tell you that, yeah, moving to Spain is sunshine and roses, and that's it. Okay, but the truth is that if you are a human being like me, you will go through different phases. The first phase is honeymoon, okay, where everything is excitement and adventure and everything will be new and it will be incredible. Okay, but then you will get a reality check, where you start facing some ugly stuff, okay, some real stuff like the Spanish bureaucracy, or some cultural barriers, some things that will shock you. Okay, I have several videos out there. So it could be small things like small parking lots that you're not used to, okay, or that there is not good Mexican tacos. Okay, here there are a few things that you didn't know you were gonna miss until you moved and you spend some time here, and you're gonna get doubts. Okay, Obviously, I'm joking about those different things, but it could be, that you start missing, people from your home countries, or more deeper things, and you're gonna get doubts. Okay, so that is very, very important that you are patient, that you understand that everyone goes through this, and that you revisit your vision again, the vision, and you revisit the reasons why you moved to Spain. Yes, were the correct reasons, right? And remember why you are doing all this. And hopefully you will get to phase 3, which is acceptance, in which you start to feel at home in your new home, and you start to embrace the lifestyle that hopefully will be lined up with your vision. Okay, so it's important that you are patient, okay, and that you grant yourself enough time, 6 to 12 months, in order to get accustomed to your new life, and try to, as I said, actively engage with others, so that you can feel yourself at home as fast as you can. For this, I have several videos. As I say, soon I will release a new video, okay, because I really like this part, because a lot of people tell you, like, yeah, moving to Spain, this is fantastic, this is fiesta land, and in a way it is true, but also it's not going to be like that all the time, right? So it's important that you consider that and you follow certain tips. First one, very important, be flexible. Okay, Spain's pace of life is different, it's slower, and this is something that people like. In fact, they end up liking. Okay, bureaucracy is very slow. I don't know anyone who likes the bureaucracy here, but you have to be very, very patient, and you have to, go through it. Learn some Spanish, keep an open mind, and embrace cultural differences. Okay, and build a support network, and prepare. A lot of people are also sharing an article about a lady who moved to northern Spain and she was super disappointed, etc. Well, if you investigate and you prepare in advance, you will not be disappointed, right? Everything will be as you already know, right? And it's just ready to be lived. Now let's recap the 9 different stages that we talked today. First, the vision, first and foremost. Second, the schedule and roadmap. Third, choosing a place to live, destination. 4, budget, money. Immigration, possibilities and eligibility. Housing when you move to Spain. Arrival steps. Building a community, and your emotional journey. We talked about all that. You can find a lot of help, free help. Like basically you can see there, you have the orange squares there. Everything is free on Spainguru except for the services part, which basically I refer you to my vetted partners that I have been recommending for several years with wonderful reviews. So you're in very good hands, but all the rest is absolutely free. The webinars, newsletter, the checklist, the destinations, the community, the guides, the visa guides, the YouTube videos, and so much more. So definitely worth checking Spainguru.es, because you will find all that for free, and the vetted partners that I mentioned. Now, if you want to stay in touch with me, my email is hello@spainguru.es. I always answer my emails. At least I point you in the right directions. I send you articles. I send you the communities that you can join. I send you the different partners that could potentially help you with it, whatever you are asking for. Yes, and guiding you in your move to Spain. And yeah, remember that the content of this webinar is for information purposes only, and it's not legal advice. Always check the official requirements. Is there any requirements for your visas? And always, take it with a pinch of salt, because it's not the same for everyone else. Now we're gonna move to the Q&A session, and if you had to leave earlier today, remember that you can leave a Trustpilot review there on the top. There's a red button that will redirect you to Trustpilot, or you can leave a review if you think that the information that I have shared today with you is useful and helped you, and you learned something new, or you think that this information could be helpful for others. Really, leaving a review on Trustpilot really helps others to find this content, and also, to be honest, it also motivates me, to read something nice about what I do. So yeah, definitely would be great if you could do it. Now we can move to some questions. I have only one question here. I have many people connected, but only one question. So feel free to shoot your questions. Could you give an example with the budget visa costs? Kelsey, that's a very open question, because visa costs. Are you talking about financial thresholds to comply with visas, or how much it costs you to move to Spain? That is very hard. I have articles on Spainguru talking about this. Cost of living. We're talking about cost of living, right? So for that, it is, as I said, it depends on your lifestyle, where you move, and so on and so on. Can you narrow down the specific, more specific questions, and I can tell you. But basically, I have videos out there where I have a video about different scenarios, okay, on for budget planning. So if I go here to Spainguru and I move to YouTube, I think Spainguru 2000, Spainguru 2000, I think this one, budget for 3 scenarios. Yes, can you live in Spain with $2,000 per month, right? A really long video of 10 minutes, okay, where I go through different cost of living or budget scenarios, okay. So I will share with you the link in the chat box here. Yeah, for example, you have there different prices, but I try to go deeper into it and laying out 3 different scenarios depending if you live in an expensive city, medium city, or affordable area, if you're renting versus you are already in a paid home, and so on and so on. So basically, there's no limit on how much money you can spend, okay. There is certainly a limit of the minimum that you can use to live in Spain, but there's no limit on the higher part, because it will depend on your lifestyle and whatever you do. So definitely worth, I think, watching those 10 minutes, and it will give you, it is somewhat technical, that video, because you need to get a little bit technical. You need to get into the numbers to understand the different costs and different scenarios. And let's be honest, Spain and many other countries had inflation in the last 5 years after the COVID. So that, things that used to be very affordable before, now they're not so much. So definitely worth to be updated. And you can use numbeo.com just to know the prices of everything. So yeah, for example, if I open here numbeo.com, they have mentioned many times in this presentation, but let's go to Numbeo, okay, and select location, pick a city. For example, Valencia, no? Let's go to Valencia, Spain, and here Valencia, it tells you, for example, a meal, $13.75, right? But in the corner of my neighborhood, in the corner of my house, here in Malaga, I can have 2 main courses for 10 euros plus dessert and drink, okay? 10. So it seems that Valencia could be more expensive here. You can actually compare 2 different cities, okay? Like cost of living comparison, right? So for example, here I put Valencia with Malaga, right? If you're comparing those 2, Malaga, Spain, compare, right? And there you can see, wow, Malaga, it appears to be more expensive. It is very, this is absolutely not technical. This is based on community-based, like people who input their prices and everything. And of course, these are averages, just to give you an idea how much it would be, more or less, the different things, okay? Meal at McDonald's, 11 in Valencia and 8 in Malaga. I can't believe that there is so much variation there, but you can see that more or less is around 10 euros, okay, for those cities of that size, right? Transportation, you can see utilities, gyms, childcare, pretty interesting. International schools, yes, more or less 10,000 euros, 9,000 euros, makes sense. These are really good values that you have to there, and there you can compare. For example, New York City, there's indexes. For example, they take as a base New York City with a cost of living index is 100, because it's let's say the standard, the gold standard within Numbeo, and then you compare Malaga, okay, which is about 51, 49 Valencia. London is very close to New York, etc., etc. So really, you can use this tool. It is absolutely free, and you can also have here, let's say, an average. Okay, so cost of living in Malaga is 4% higher than Valencia, excluding rent, and if you include rent, it's 3.7% higher, right? So yeah, more or less you can have those in the back of your mind when you're narrowing the destinations where you plan to move. All right, so I don't see any more questions or comments. Remember that I'm going to be sending you the link for the recording of this webinar to your emails. I really appreciate that you joined today. And let's stay in touch if you wish. Hello@spainguru.es. And remember, if you can leave a review, it would be wonderful. It will make my week. And I stay in touch. If you have any questions, send me an email, and I will do my best to get back to you and at least point you in the right direction. Kelsey, so helpful. I have private questions. Emailing you now. Okay, thank you so much. By the way, today I'm gonna be taking 1 week holiday, so I'm gonna be slower. But I haven't taken a single holiday this year since last summer of the previous year. So looking forward to take 1 little week of holiday. But of course, I'm gonna be checking my email and so on and so on. And but maybe I'm not gonna be as responsive as every single day. So as fast, I would say, because as I said, I always answer my emails. Thank you so much for joining today. Have a wonderful week and stay in touch. Take care, and I see you around. Bye bye.